Hello and welcome to The Critique. Today we're digging into Gabbie Hanna, an overview which does a great job synthesizing a huge body of deleted content about her attempts to handle controversy. Okay, so this is incredibly rich, really detailed source material. Our goal here is to maximize its impact. The first and I think most critical area is the analytical approach itself.
Right.
To really level this up from, a detailed summary of drama to something more powerful, the core argument has to pivot. It needs to analyze her central self-defeating paradox.
Which is that quest for peace through public provocation.
Exact. The quest for peace by starting a war.
Yeah, because right now, I think the draft, it risks just becoming a list of the feuds. You have Rice Gum, then Trisha Paytas, then the whole escape the night thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it just paints this picture of constant chaos. It makes her seem perpetually volatile, but without explaining the why, the structural problem behind it.
Precisely. The timeline is kind of overpowering the analysis. We need to unify all those chaotic moments under one single theme.
Yeah.
The real problem is that her attempts to escape or find peace, like she says in the Confessions preface, right? That she'd rather lose everything.
Right, and start over.
Yes, those are the very actions that just drive more controversy. Her solution is actually her disease.
So the suggestion isn't just to talk about the conflict, but to frame the entire piece around that impulse.
Mm-hmm.
We need a strong analytical framework right up front that really looks at how her choice to publish that deleted therapeutic series, which was meant to be her big goodbye.
Her closure.
Yeah, her closure, how that actually resulted in this massive public backlash and really just re-traumatized her.
Exact. The weakness is treating that series as just an explanation of past events. We should be analyzing it as a strategic move that, ultimately blew up in her face.
A self-destructive one.
For sure. The overview needs to argue that publishing it was less about real closure and more about this, uncontrollable need to grab the mic, to control the narrative.
And in doing so, she created the very smear campaign she was trying to fight.
Yes.
And building on that, we have to use the cruel irony of it all. We should specifically link her statement that the series was her goodbye, that she didn't want to fight anymore.
Right.
With what actually happened, the immediate outcome, which was what? These huge 6 million view response videos from Joey Graceffa and Daniel Preda.
It's the perfect tragic example of the paradox in action. She tried to bury the ghosts by giving them this huge public funeral, and instead she just resurrected them for a bigger audience.
Yeah, she basically forced herself to relive the very trauma she wanted to put to bed.
And the piece has the evidence for this. It's all there. It just needs to be brought to. You have to use her own admission that she was testing out the mind.
Oh, that quote.
To see how it felt to be the villain.
Yes, and that she found it draining and not fulfilling. That specific quote is it's gold.
That juxtaposition creates such a clear, compelling thesis about how futile it is to try and find control through this kind of react. It just sharpens the whole focus. It goes from she's always in drama to she structurally creates the drama she says she hates. And that is the engine that will elevate this whole piece.
I agree. That framing is so much more insightful. It gives the reader a lens to view everything else that happens.
Okay, so let's move on to how we deliver that. The structure. This ties right into how the audience is going to absorb these really complicated fights.
Okay.
The second major opportunity here is in how you present the counter.
I think I know where you're going. The strongest parts of this material are where her claims are just glaringly, directly contradicted by hard evidence, by the receipts.
Exactly.
But right now, in those really messy conflicts like Escape the Night, her emotional grievance gets presented first. It gets paragraphs of space before the facts come out.
And that softens the critical blow, doesn't it? When you're editing, if you delay the counterpunch, it loses all its power. It turns a smoking gun into an afterthought.
Right.
So the recommendation is simple. Use immediate juxtaposition.
Immediate juxtaposition. So present her big emotionally charged claim and then, boom, immediately follow it with the factual counter-evidence, which so often comes from her own texts.
The reader shouldn't have to wait 3 pages for the reveal.
Let's break down a specific example, the Escape the Night food situation.
Okay, yeah.
She makes this powerful emotional claim, right? That she needed 3 healthy meals a day because of her eating disorder, and if she didn't get them, it made her evil. That's a serious accusation. It gets the audience on her side.
It does, and the current structure lets that claim just hang in the air for way too long. To maximize the impact, you have to contrast that claim immediately with the evidence.
With the texts from the production team.
Yes, we know she got extreme accommodation. Daniel Preda literally agreed to her super specific list. What was it? Chicken, fish, veggies, sweet potatoes.
Black beans, salad, dry lettuce, and 2 1-by-1-inch strips of meat. I mean, it's incredibly specific.
The contrast is just devastating. She's claiming neglect, but the receipts show this meticulous, bespoke care. And the explosion on set still happened.
And by putting that evidence right after the grievance, you instantly show this pattern of unreasonable expectations versus what was actually delivered.
It forces the reader to confront that disconnect right away. And look, this isn't about disputing her eating disorder.
No, not at all.
It's about analyzing the gap between her claimed need, the documented professional response, and then her reaction to it. It makes the critique feel objective.
And you can do the exact same thing with the costume issue.
Right. The material mentions her complaining the outfit was restrictive, that it caused allergic reactions, making it sound like the production was totally insensitive.
So if we use juxtaposition there, the flow becomes, here's her complaint about the costume. And then, in the very next breath, you reveal she missed 2 subsequent fittings.
Even when the pregnant designer offered to come to her music studio because she was too busy.
That small structural shift changes everything. It completely refutes the narrative of an uncaring production, and instead, it highlights a failure of professional responsibility on her part.
Exactly. So the reader isn't left thinking, I wonder how much effort they really put in. The answer is right there, instantly. It makes the critique so much more robust.
It gives the whole piece a pace, a forward momentum that it's sort of missing right now. We're moving from a passive list of events to an active forensic analysis.
Right. Okay, so for our final area, which touches on completeness and focus, we have to talk about the mental health framing.
Ah, yes.
The repeated use of mental health explanations, ADHD, anxiety, for professional and business disputes. It needs really careful, objective analysis. We need to distinguish between a legitimate health challenge and just avoiding corporate accountability.
The overview is very clear that she relies heavily on self-diagnosed conditions to explain her behavior on set. The fidgeting during apologies, the emotional reactions.
The notes even mention it could be a drinking game prompt.
Right.
But that narrative gets really problematic when it's applied to financial or professional misconduct, where the stakes are purely transactional and they affect her audience, the consumers.
So if the piece is at risk of blurring that line, we need to dedicate a sharp, focused section to the Kenza Cosmetics scandal.
That's the perfect test case.
It is. It highlights a failure of professional responsibility that, it goes beyond any personal drama or mental health excuse.
Yeah, so you'd have to frame the core weakness there not as her being scammed by T channels, which is how she often framed it.
Right.
But as her own professional failure. She promoted a really bad product, and then her response to the consumers was just patronizing. That is such a critical distinction, because focusing only on the drama, you might accidentally let the core business failure off the hook. Let's start with the money. She promoted free brushes where people paid $10 for shipping.
And that transaction is the key. She later admitted the brushes were only worth, about $1 a brush?
That is a massive gap between the implied value of a free gift and what the consumer actually paid. This has to be analyzed as a consumer trust issue, not a personal fight.
That's so true. The core problem isn't even the product quality itself. People know when they're getting cheap makeup. It's the marketing. It's the defense of that pricing structure. The failure is in the professional ethics.
But the most critical part, the thing that gives this critique its sharpest edge, is her response. We have to dissect that tone-deaf statement she made.
You mean her telling the audience to manage your expectations a little bit, because if you want really high-quality brushes, you're going to pay a really high-quality price.
That's the one. That single statement should be the anchor for this whole section. The overview has to analyze that quote as a major failure in audience alignment and professional ethics.
Because it just dismisses the consumer's grievance, right? Paying $10 shipping for dollar store brushes is a valid complaint.
Totally. It's a failure of corporate communication. It is not a symptom of anxiety or ADHD.
And analyzing it that way, as a failure in ethics, it provides that angle and originality the critique needs. It grounds everything in tangible, recorded behavior about consumer trust. It lets the piece rise above, armchair psychology and focus squarely on accountability.
It's clean. It's an objective point of criticism that anyone can grasp without needing to know all the deep lore of her personal life. It's just bad business.
Yeah, and by creating that focus section on Kenza, you round out the whole piece. You make sure it's addressing the full spectrum of controversies, not just the interpersonal drama, but the commercial failures too.
So, just to summarize the 3 big opportunities here for the Gabbie Hanna, an overview. First, clarify that central paradox of seeking peace through conflict. Make that the engine of the whole piece.
Right, using the therapeutic series as the primary example of that paradox in action.
Second, refine the structure. Use that immediate juxtaposition to highlight the self-contradictory evidence. Walk through the escape the night conflicts to really maximize the impact of the receipts.
And third, dedicate a focus section to professional accountability, specifically analyzing the Kenza Cosmetics response.
And use that manage your expectations quote to draw a clear, objective line between poor business ethics and personal mental health challenges.
This is really deeply researched material. It's so rich. These suggestions are just tools to help refine that structure and sharpen the analytical focus. It'll give your argument the punch it deserves.
We absolutely encourage you to implement these changes, sharpen up that narrative arc, and please submit your improved Gabbie Hanna and overview back to us. We'd love to do a follow-up. Until next time.